again, in critical moments, the Bucks just came up bigger, and that's what it really came down to. The Bucks came up bigger in critical moments, you know. So I don't know. I'm excited to see what the game's going to be. I'm not sure who's going to win that next one, and even if they win that next one, I'm not sure what ends up happening. But it's going to be a good game, and I'm excited for whatever happens. This finals has turned out to be a lot better than what I anticipated, especially after the first two games. So I think everybody has to be enjoying it. Welcome
Welcome
to Beyond
to Beyond
Sports
Sports
with Paul and Jeremy.
with Paul and Jeremy.
I'm Paul.
I'm Jeremy.
We look at sports from all angles.
What's really going on
Beyond Sports.
beyond sports?
All right, so welcome to Beyond Sports with Paul and Jeremy. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to start with our shorts, right? So we're going to talk about the world of sports, different things, and I like to think about it as little seeds, right? Talking about little things that we've noticed and what they can grow into. Right? So one of the things that we have been talking about recently was the NBA playoffs, right? So right now, the series is actually 2-1 for the Suns. There was a really good game last night, yeah, right? So last night, where I think, what was it, 20 points or so that they beat them by, something like that, some crazy 20, 30 points or something.
Yeah, I think it was 20.
And this is one of the conversations that we had. Can the Bucks win a game? And how would they be able to do it, right? So, Jeremy, what is your take on what the Bucks did, and how does that relate to some of the things that we talked about during our previous podcast? And then what once we go there, what else do we expect next from that?
It was totally not the game that I thought that they would play. So for me, I thought they had to slow the game down, play a half-court game, stop the transition of the Suns in order to be competitive. Mm-hmm. Well, they kept running. Everybody kept running.
Yeah.
The difference was the Suns didn't shoot as well, and I think that the Bucks shot better. And what you saw from the Bucks was they got Giannis shots in the paint. He was really concentrating on getting shots in the paint. And he hit he hit like 13 out of 18 or free throws, something like that.
Yeah.
He hit a lot of free throws, like a very high percentage of free throws. So he got a lot of shots in the paint. He was highly efficient on his field goals, and he made a lot of his free throws. So that's a deadly combination when Giannis is being that efficient. Defensively, I don't think that they did anything special defensively. They were more aggressive. They were more active, and they kind of got in the passing lanes. Maybe one thing that we hadn't thought about was the Bucks actually might have a size advantage. DeAndre Ayton got in foul trouble early, and with Saric out, where do the Suns go for a backup big man? It was really tough. So with Saric out and Ayton in foul trouble, that really helped the Bucks get a size advantage. They led in rebounds, and they seemed like they were getting a lot of rebounds. So that could also be key if they really want to go at Ayton and try to get him in foul trouble too.
Yeah, and I think that was partially one of the things that we talked about, right? Was saying that what they need to do is if they're going to foul Giannis, they need to make sure that they're fouling somebody that's important to get out, right? I talked about Chris Paul and Booker maybe getting some of these screen pick and roll type mismatches and taking advantage of that. But Ayton had those issues, and we saw how that played out. I think especially combining that with the fact that the Suns weren't hitting some of the shots that they typically would have, now that introduces one of the things that we also discussed, right, with this transition points, right? Giannis is one of those transition guys. When they get those rebounds, if you can get it to him in transition, then he has a really good chance of scoring some points. And that's not something that you can do when the Suns are making shot after shot after shot. It limits these opportunities for rebounds and these quick transition plays. So I think that was one of the things that kind of helped out the Bucks as well. With the size advantage, right? I think that it was good, but I think that the Bucks also had a certain amount of energy as well that they played with when they were at home. You mentioned how the fans, right, with the Suns were just getting on their nerves, right? Like where they count to 13 seconds or so every single time, 11, 12, 13, whatever, right? So to try to throw him off of this game, but he didn't have to deal with that at home. And a lot of times when I saw him shooting his free throws, he looked a little bit more confident with his shot. And I think that was just one of those things that kind of helped out as well, right? So with this game going the way that it did, right? Were there any other players that stood out that showed something that you think can continue to contribute in the future as well, and maybe help them out winning that second game at home.
Yeah, we need to see more Bobby Portis. He brings energy, he brings size, he can score inside and outside. His nickname is Crazy Eyes, so you know he's going to bring it. So we need more Crazy Eyes in the series, I think.
Yeah, was Bobby Portis? Was he from Arkansas? Is that what he's Arkansas?
Arkansas.
Was he a Razorback? I can't remember where Bobby Portis was at.
I know he was SEC Player of the Year, and wow, for some reason, let's go with Arkansas. That sounds right.
Yeah, something like that. But Bobby Portis is an interesting guy, right? Like he always had that offensive game, very strong. He kind of reminds me of a Julius Randle type in the sense of like that low post offensive type of thing where he has like different types of moves and can score on a lot of different guys with his size. So I think that's a really cool thing. Another point that I wanted to talk about was Chris Middleton, right? So one of the things that you mentioned was with those screens, maybe we can do some screens to kind of get Chris Middleton some open shots, right? Did that happen? And from your view, did that happen? And how do you feel that went?
I don't feel like Chris Middleton's shots were any less difficult than what he'd been taking. I think he hit more shots. I think Jrue Holiday hit more shots. And it just goes with the home crowd, I think, and them being at home with that home energy. So I feel like I did see him come off a couple screens. I thought they were trying to, work and get him some easier shots, but I still think the Suns played really good defense on him. He just happened to hit more shots than he did on the road. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
I thought that it was actually interesting. I remember a couple of times there were some screens with Chris Middleton and Giannis, and I thought Middleton might pass it to Giannis, but he went to the three-point line and actually was making shots with confidence. And I thought that was one of the things that he hadn't really shown. He hadn't shown that confidence and that comfortability with his shot and with finding his shot as well. A lot of times when I saw him down, his feet were set, he looked confident, and the shots were one of those things that you remember when you were talking about there's two different types of misses, right? There's the ones that kind of go in, and there's the kinds that are just sporadic, right? So when we're talking about accuracy and precision, right? So his misses or his shots were more precise, right? Like when he's shooting the threes, it's just, and I think that was a real good thing for them to see, because you need to have Chris Middleton being able to score so your team feels comfortable. When people are able to take advantage of what naturally comes to them, now your team has a better flow. When they don't, now you start to think a little bit more, right? Like Giannis, when he has the ball in his hand trying to pass it. I think that's another thing I didn't notice as much. I didn't notice Giannis bringing up the ball as much. He did have some isolation situations, right? On Booker, there's a couple different isolation situations. On Crowder, there's a couple isolation situations. But again, these were back to the basket type of situations where Giannis could show his big man strength, right? Like Giannis is out there pushing guys and getting into the paint, right, where he can do the work. But you don't see him bringing the ball down or starting at the three-point line and trying to initiate an offense or drive through a bunch of guys. They got him into places where it was more of an isolation situation, where you had the sideline, so he didn't have to worry about anyone coming from this side. And I think that when they were able to do that for Giannis, that definitely helped out his game. Adding to that down with the Suns missing and them playing a more fast-paced game where they were able to get into some of these passing lanes, now you added that effectiveness of Giannis when he was trying to do his transition stuff as well. So I thought that was a really good thing as far as the overall game and the changes that the Bucks had made. The next question that I have for you is, what about the Suns? So what did you notice about the Suns, and if they're going to if they're going to try to win the next game, what do you think that it will take for them to get there?
What I think is happening right now, the Suns just had a bad game. They had Ayton in foul trouble. Devin Booker was just not hitting shots, and even though Chris Paul tried his best, he couldn't keep him in the game. So two of their three best players didn't play well. They lost by 20, but they felt like they were in the game, and it felt like there was that pivotal moment like you had talked about, and it felt like it could have swung the Suns' way. So I'm not really worried about where the Suns stand. I'm actually surprised that the game turned out the way it did and that the Bucks won by 20. I really didn't see the Bucks winning a game, let alone winning by 20. So now that the Bucks got their win, I still don't feel like the Bucks are the better team. I still feel like if you get any contribution from Booker and from Ayton, then the Suns should win. I just feel like they're the better roster up and down. So I'm not too worried about what the Suns do because I think they'll come back. I mean, it's not like the Suns have lost a lot of games this postseason, right? When they lose a game, they've come back and they played well the next game. I can't see them playing poorly 2 games in a row. And the only way that they would be playing poorly is if the Bucks forced them into it. And the Bucks' defensive intensity, to me, hasn't been such that they're actually forcing the Suns into playing poorly. But we'll see. Next game, I still believe that the Suns will win next game and go up 3-1. For me, I thought it was going to be a sweep because I just feel like the Suns are just better. So I'm still going to go with the Suns in next game, and I'll have them winning in 5.
Yeah, so this one is a interesting one for me, especially because I think the Suns have a lot going for them, right? They've had this super long break, right, where they got to rest and they got to get healthy as well. So that was one of the things that that happened. They didn't seem. I think the thing that I noticed that caused them that issue, kind of like we talked about, there's going to be that critical point, and at that critical point, what I said was I thought that it was going to be the Suns scoring and the Bucks defense, and that's what was going to be. But what ended up happening was that the Bucks were able to continue to put pressure on the Suns, and even though they had some type of scoring opportunities, when the Bucks were able to get on these runs, now they were able to take advantage of momentum, and they hadn't really had too much momentum before, where they got on these big runs, and that was one of the points that we discussed. And I think that for the Suns, one of the things that they're going to have to do, like you said, is they're going to have to get these guys involved, and they're going to have to make it so that they shut off these runs as soon as they happen. Because when you're in Milwaukee, you have their fan base, you have a re-energized Giannis. I think that that's definitely a difficult thing to kind of have, right? So when you have Giannis coming through and feeling like himself again, that's kind of dangerous, because now you've added another weapon to his repertoire that he has not been using against the Suns. So I don't know. I think that the big thing for the Suns going forward is to make sure that they're getting easy shots. Devin Booker's still getting easy shots, crossing guys at the 3-point line, stepping back, and it's just easy. Like, his shots are so easy from 3. It's like the smallest amount of space and the smallest amount of time. And I think that's very dangerous, but if he can't consistently have that going, if they can't keep that going throughout the game, then maybe there is a close matchup. So I think the biggest thing that came away from this game was the fact that the Bucks have confidence now. They have confidence that they may actually be able to win this game or win a series or play with energy or keep up with these guys, because in the previous games, I feel like they really looked like they had no chance. Like, in their faces, in their minds. Like, I remember seeing it being in the fourth quarter, and then the Suns would go on a streak, and then you just see Giannis's face, and he's just walking back like another hill to go over, right? Yeah. So I think that's one of the things to definitely keep in mind. So I guess with that said, any thoughts about that part? And then the last part I want to do is just get our final predictions for this game, and who we think will win, and what the score will be, and what the biggest storylines that may come out of it might be.
That was like 7 different things, but all right.
I know, man.
Let me see if I can keep up. What do I think about what you just said? I think you have some good points, because the Bucks getting confidence, that is definitely a possibility, that now that they know that they can win a game. But there's a difference between winning one game and feeling you can win the entire series. So hopefully they still have that. Now, a lot of people are using the last game to say, Giannis is dominant, Giannis is great, because Giannis has scored 40 points and gotten 10 rebounds, I guess, in 2 consecutive games, which is great. But they still lost the first one. So I don't know if Giannis scoring 40 points means very much, because if nobody else contributes, then they're not going to win. So what we saw was the fact that the other teammates picked him up. That's why they won. So, I mean, Giannis's numbers, to me, they don't really mean that much. A 40-point game in 2021 isn't the same as a 40-point game in 1999 in the playoffs. It's just not. So the numbers are one thing, but it's all about wins. I like what you said about confidence. I like what you said about how they maybe figured out what to do, and maybe they'll be able to carry this over to the next game. But my thinking is that Devin Booker will not have 2 bad games in a row like that. Like you said about him, his ability as a shooter, he's not dumb. He's not unintelligent. He's not inexperienced. He knows how to get a shot. He knows what to do to make adjustments. Ayton is not going to make those silly mistakes. Who knows what the whistle's going to be like in the next game? Maybe they don't call the same fouls that they did before. We just don't know. But I have more faith in the more talented team and what I feel like is the better coach team. So that's why, summing that all up, I'm going to go with the Suns next game. So I think if the Suns win next game, they go up 3-1. It's going to be hard for the Bucks to even have any confidence to come back. So Game 5 to me will be the end of it.
All right. So Jeremy thinks it's going to go Game 5. He does not have any confidence in what the Bucks showed this previous game. I'm actually a little bit in the other side of it. I think that the Bucks right now, they have something. And one thing to keep in mind about the two different teams, right? There's two different storylines that are going on. Suns, awesome season. We're going for the number 1 seed. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, Cameron Payne, this whole group that didn't make the playoffs last year and has something to prove. You know, I think that that's a really good storyline. I also think that the storyline of the Bucks really having their first shot at a championship and understanding that all those years when they were just coming short, this is the feeling that they wanted when they kept losing. And to have that taste of winning one game in the NBA championship, I think that that's a lot of motivation. And I wouldn't take that for granted. And I think that with the Bucks, when they're on, and if they're able to have those transition opportunities, then I think that that's going to help them out. And like you said, it's not about the Giannis scoring the 40 and 10. He can get it, but it's about how does he do it? Does he do it within the flow of the game, or does he do it by himself forcing it? And I feel like this third game that they played was him doing it within the flow of the game and not necessarily forcing it, which seemed like it was happening in Game 1 and Game 2. So if they can do that, where Giannis does not force the issue and plays naturally within the game, getting his putback dunks or his little sneaky layups or being big man Giannis down low, whatever he does, if he's able to do it within the flow of the game, I think that they win. So I say that the Bucks win this next game, tied up 4-4, and then at that point, it'll be interesting. If they can win this game 2-2. In dominant, 2-2, sorry, 4-4. If they can win this game,
that best of 9 series, boy.
You know, it used to be best of 7 or something, or it used to be best of my bad. So if they can win this and get that 2-2 tie, I think if they can win it in a manner that is consistent with what they show from Game 3, then they'll be very solid and well off. So I'm excited to see what happens in this game, man. I'm not necessarily sure, but the Bucks definitely showed me something that I hadn't seen with how confident they were able to get, and I haven't seen that throughout the playoffs. So again, if they can keep that up, I think they might have a shot in this NBA championship. So
what I think about this is if the Bucks actually win this series, it'll be like the Mavericks in 2011. It'll be one of those things where the team that isn't supposed to win at all somehow beats the favorite, and then the other team is just got their jaw dropped. They don't know what happened, right?
Yeah.
And that'll be the storyline right there. But you remember how one time Cam Newton said that he got told he was too young to get a certain call? I think Giannis is too young to get the Dirk storyline. I think he's too young for that. You know, Dirk had to be 40 years old before he got that. So
yeah, well,
I guess we'll see how it goes.
We'll see. But yeah, I'm excited for this series. And you have our takes, you have our storyline points. So let us know what you guys think. Does Giannis have what it takes? Do the Bucks more or less have what it takes? Or are the Suns just going to be too powerful and too dominant of a team? Well, I guess we'll all see a little bit more about that tomorrow, right? So
yeah, we'll see. Also, I know Dirk wasn't 40 years old when they won, but you know, people treated him like he was. He
Dirk
wasn't
was 40
old,
years old for most of his career, man. Like,
yeah. Until I think what they say that remember when Kobe was doing his farewell tour, and somehow I think the commissioner decided, or it was either Kobe or Tim Duncan, but somehow the commissioner decided that it was also going to be Dirk's last year too. And it's like Dirk didn't decide he was going to retire or anything, but the commissioner was like, "Have you seen Dirk? Have you seen him play?" Yeah, he's got to be, man. He's got to be his last year.
Yeah, so, it's like they need to maybe they should start voting on players last year. It's like, hey, man, this is your last year in the league. We don't want to see you starting for any NBA team. You're holding the league back.
Yeah, man, we seen you play. You got to be able to. Maybe they do the skills competition every year. People got to do that, and if their time is at a certain level, maybe they just run a 40 something. You know what I'm saying? Like there's got to be some measure where you're like,
you don't meet
man,
the athletic requirements.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's funny.
Exactly. Well, like if you want to stay around, you got to be an assistant coach, but you can't play anymore.
You're gonna be like coach player. We're gonna be talking about a continued discussion, and that is the Bucks Suns series. So, Bucks Suns series. Jeremy, you want to give us a quick run through of what you thought about this series before this game and what you anticipated happening, and then we'll go.
So, if you guys have been paying attention, I've really thought that the Suns should have swept the series. Every game, I was like, Suns are going to win. Suns are going to win. Suns were supposed to be up 3-0. The Suns are supposed to be up 4-0. Now the Suns will win next game and go up 3-2. And then they will win in 6. And then even when it goes 7 games, the Suns will win game 7. And if they lose, they will win in 8. So it doesn't matter. The Suns will win this series. If it takes 9 games, they'll do it. Last night's game was really weird to me. So full disclosure, I missed the first quarter and a half or so. I was driving, but I was listening to it on the radio, and it sounded like there was just kind of low energy for most of the game. And even when I went and picked it up and saw it, it just seemed low energy. It seemed slow. It wasn't like it was physical, but there's a lot of shots being missed, a lot of just sloppy handling, like especially on the part of the Suns. So it just seemed like people are tired now. Is that it? Like, it's the last series. Everybody knows it. Best 2 out of 3 for the NBA championship. And maybe people are tired now. That's what it seems like is going on. So I fully expected the Suns to pull the game out down the stretch. And the Bucks made some really great plays down the stretch, pulled it out, and showed me that they're a little bit tougher than I originally thought.
Yeah, you thought that they were in the wrong place. Like, they opened the wrong door and were like, where are we at? But they showed that they actually did enter the right door. I think that I really like that point, and I want to kind of expand on that one as well. When you're talking about these guys maybe being tired, right? That's not something that we really consider too much of in the series. But when you're saying that now, it makes me think, well, for the Suns, they had those series before, they got that break, and the first 2 games, they looked refreshed. They looked like they had energy. This was not the same type of situation for the Bucks, right? Because the Bucks had to go the whole way through, right? So the Bucks went the whole way through. The Suns had their break, and now that they came back, that after a couple of games, maybe that energy level between the 2 teams is starting to match a little bit more, right? I think one of the things that I saw was Devin Booker missed a late game layup, right? And I was like, wow, this dude's over here missing layups, and he has to make that. It's critical for them to have a chance at the game, and he missed a layup, and it wasn't that hard of a layup. I mean, there was somebody that was right behind him, but when you're down 6 points and you're trying to cut into the lead, you need that, and you need to put all your energy and effort towards that. And to see that was missed so badly, I think that kind of goes towards that point that you're talking about. Maybe these guys are starting to get tired, and maybe it's taking a role or taking an effect on how they're actually playing. So
yeah, I do think that beyond that, like, okay, Devin Booker scored 40 points last night, and it didn't seem like he scored 40. He was just putting the ball in the basket. He got at least 6 fouls last night, though, maybe more. Like, he had 5 fouls. They took him out. He came back in the game. He made a hard challenge on a Drew Holiday fast break that wasn't called a foul. He had another where he contested a fast break. Chris Middleton didn't get called a foul. The guy got a lot of chances, and he actually was the real driving factor for his team. But we do have to discuss Giannis in that block that he got on the alley-oop to Ayton, which probably sealed the game. They were only up 2 at that point, and Booker did a little pick and roll with Ayton. Ayton slipped, went up for the alley-oop. Booker threw. It was a good pass. He would have dunked it, because Ayton can dunk anything that he's near, and he loves to play above the rim. Giannis he got took, basically followed Booker, saw the oop go up, then he had to actually change direction, jump up, and make the block. I heard a lot of people talking about how it wasn't a great play. It was a great individual defensive play. because he had to see the ball go up, react to it, jump, and somehow meet Ayton above the rim and block it. It was a great play, and it saved the game to me anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that in real time, when I saw that happen, I was like, oh, okay, nice little oop to Ayton. That's 2 points. They tied it up. And then I saw like this figure. It wasn't even a person. It was just a figure that zoomed, came somewhere. And then I saw the ball go. And I was like, wait, what just happened? What just happened? And then I realized that Giannis came and blocked an oop. That was a quick oop. It wasn't even just like it was like quick and then right there, and he just came last moment. And I think that was really, really critical, right? Because you're talking about how can these teams win? And remember when we talked about it before, we said that I think that there's going to come that critical moment, right? Bringing that part back where there's going to be the Suns offense versus the Bucks defense, and who's going to show up at those moments, right? Because the Suns show that they have been able to score. The Bucks hadn't necessarily been able to do that, but now the Bucks defense showed up really well. And I want to bring back another guy. I want to talk a little bit about Chris Middleton, right? Because Chris Middleton, we talked about that last game where I said I feel like he was more comfortable. His feet were getting set. His shots were going in. Even the misses were very close. And Chris Middleton, I think, took that game on his shoulders at one point. It was just like, I'm about to score all these points. I'm going to take all the shots, contested, whatever. I'm going to get to my spot, and I'm going to hit these shots. That was pretty wild. What do you think of Chris Middleton's performance?
I think Chris Middleton is such an unassuming scorer. When it all happened, I didn't even realize that it happened. I was looking for the other guys, Portis, Connaughton, Drew Holiday. I was looking for those guys to be making shots, and they weren't necessarily making the most shots. And then I look, and they're like, Chris Middleton, 40 points. I was like, what? How did he score 40 points? I see him hit a couple of mid-range shots. I seen him hit a layup or two. And I knew down the stretch he was taking the free throws, which he should do. So props to him for that, for taking over in that respect. So he's such a quiet scorer. All of his points count, and they're all needed. So as long as he's aggressive like that, it doesn't matter, I guess, how loud he is when it comes to scoring his points, as long as he can get a bunch of them. And that it takes all the pressure off of Giannis, who only scored, I think, 27, whereas he'd been scoring 40 the past 2 games. So if Giannis doesn't have to score 40, that team is going to be a lot better. And we said it. Giannis doesn't need to be the focal point of the offense. Giannis needs to get the opportunistic points and play defense, which he really did when it mattered the most. So I think that's the key for them. And they have to make it muddy. They have to make it a tough physical game. And maybe Phoenix is wearing down. Maybe they're tired. Maybe Chris Paul, with his underlying injuries, is starting to show up, because I don't know why he was losing the ball so much. I don't know why he was just kind of falling around the court. Maybe whatever his injuries are and the things that make him tired, maybe they're starting to surface. And as this series keeps going, maybe he's going to get more and more tired, and there's going to be more burden on Booker. If he can't stay out of foul trouble and Ayton can't stay out of foul trouble, their team is going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that's very interesting. One thing that I didn't really get to see as much of, and you may be able to put a little bit more on this topic, as far as Chris Paul, one of the storylines for him has been getting to the free throw line, getting his foul calls, doing his little flop, still making points. Did he have that same type of effect this game, or was that something that hadn't been seen too often?
I saw him make a few shots and miss a few. It didn't seem like in the past games when they had been challenged, when the game was close, he stepped up and hit the big baskets. And it seemed like he didn't make those shots this game. And worse, he was going and he was throwing passes to no one. He was making really inopportune turnovers, sometimes live ball turnovers. He had a couple different fast breaks based off Chris Paul turnovers toward the end of the game. So even if Chris Paul isn't making shots, he at least should not turn the ball over, right? That's the one thing that needs to be done. And so if he's going to turn the ball over, that's going to be a problem. But his offense, it really wasn't there tonight from what I saw, or last night from what I saw, and the turnovers added on to that problem.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I want to go into as well, again, another point that you made me think about, Chris Paul having these turnovers, being a little bit more tired. We forget that Chris Paul is, 36 years old or so, something like that?
Yeah, he's old as you are, man.
Yeah, 36, 37. Bruh. No, I don't care. But listen, 36 years old, right? You know that we saw LeBron in his series struggle with fatigue, struggle with keeping up with this younger pace guys. And one of the things that we noticed the most was that when Anthony Davis wasn't there, when they didn't have other guys to kind of bring up the ball, LeBron wasn't as focused. He had a lot more turnovers. He wasn't making these shots. That fatigue thing is starting to play a role, and maybe that's something that is going to be a bigger impact, especially for these guys getting into their late 30s. Do you think that part of his game, putting all the energy that he's used in this series, or in the playoffs, going from his shoulder being hurt in the first game with the Lakers or whatever, right? And then coming back, using all his energy, getting his break, and now showing it. I think he showed out the first game of this series, right? He just was like busting shots from everywhere, right? Like, did he use too much energy? Do you really think that Chris Paul has enough in the tank to play a full game and then also have enough at the end to lead his team or to lead Devin Booker's team, whatever you decide it is? Do you think that he has that ability to support a team with his age and with what he's done in the playoffs so far?
Well, I think at the advanced age that Chris Paul and you both are, you got to pick your spots, right? You know better than most, right? So what you got to do, I think, like we talked about those old school point guards that back guys down. Like Chris Paul needs to slow the tempo down. He needs to control the pace of the game, I think, and kind of save his energy for the moments when it matters the most. Even maybe give Cameron Payne some more minutes. You know, maybe Cameron Payne needs to play a little bit more so Chris Paul can save himself. But the team needs the leadership down the stretch. They need Chris Paul to hit his patented jumper down the stretch. They need him to be there to play defense. And I think if he expends all of his energy early on, that's going to be a problem. You mentioned the shoulder injury, and I think that might be something that, and he said he had a injury in his right hand, in his shooting hand of some sort, some kind of ligament or tendon or something. So if that injury is still a problem, and it looks like it kind of is, like if you remember when he first got that shoulder injury, how he shot kind of from the side, it was a weird shooting motion. It looks like he still kind of has that little form to his shooting. So he might still be bothered by that injury and still want to play through it, you know? So if that's actually kind of a problem, then there's not much that can be done, because the more he shoots, the more it's going to just aggravate that injury, and he won't be able to really do anything until the series is over. So maybe he's downplaying that injury, but maybe it's actually more of a problem than what he's been saying.
That's an interesting point. I do like the point of bringing in Cameron Payne, maybe giving him a little bit more playing time. I love that in game 3, I believe it was, Cameron Payne was kind of slowing down the game a little bit. He was getting into the lane and he was hitting his little like bunny, his little floater, you know, and that was a very efficient thing for them, right? Because it slowed down the Bucks defense. They had to make sure that they kept an eye on him going through the lane. And oftentimes I remember seeing like Jay Crowder, somebody open in the corner. He didn't need to pass it because his floater game was really strong, but that does open up another opportunity. And this is what you want to do, I feel, is you want to make sure that you keep the Bucks off balance. You cannot let them get your number on defense, because if they do, then it's just going to make it harder, right? Because they do have some very long, agile guys that are out there playing defense, as we saw with Giannis with the block on Ayton. Amazing play, right? So I think that's one of the things that's very interesting for me, is how they get the other guys incorporated into the game. And I think that's something that I'm going to be looking forward to in Game 5. So question for you, Game 5, what do you anticipate? What are some of the things that you would like to look out for, and what can we keep an eye out for with the different players and what they may or may not show?
Man, I wish I knew what was going on in the series. I wish I really wanted to just like not say anything for like 45 seconds, because I'm kind of speechless as to how this whole thing has happened so far. If you're listening to this, I just edited out 45 seconds of silence because I'm speechless. But what I think needs to be looked at is just how are they going to play the game? Is this going to be played at that slow pace? Is it going to be played up tempo? This has been a series of pace, right? This is who can exert their will and end up dominating the tempo game. We know the Suns would rather be running. We know the Bucks need to slow it down. They need to make it physical. The last 2 games have been slower and more physical. The Bucks have won. The home team has won every game, though. So you have to think that the Suns are favored, right? The Suns going back home, the crowd shouting, counting down or counting up for Giannis free throws. All that stuff is a factor. So I think you can't underestimate the home court advantage that the Suns will have. So every game since Game 2 has been the most important game of the series. and that will not change in Game 5. Obviously, the game tied at 2. The Game 5 winner wins an overwhelming percentage of the series. So it's pivotal, absolutely important for whoever wins this game. So I'm going to have to go with the Suns still because I have no reason to pick against them. They're home. I still think they should be the better team. The fact that Milwaukee wins, I cannot describe how they've been winning the games they've won. I cannot describe why. I know that Giannis taking 3-pointers, which he did last game, is not a good idea. He still did it. I know that, a lot of the things that they do on offense and defense doesn't make sense. I know that the Suns should be able to kill the Bucks with their pick and roll. They should be able to kill the Bucks with their offense, with their passing. But for some reason, the Bucks are still in the game. So I don't know, man. I don't know, but I'm going to go with the Suns because I think if the Suns can use the home court advantage to their advantage and play their tempo that they want, all of their players now, the role players, are going to be playing much better. They're going to be hitting shots. And if the Bucks win this game, then you can forget it, man. If the Bucks win this game, it's going to be, I just can't see it happening, but it's going to be crazy if the Bucks win because you gotta think the Bucks will win it in 6. But I'm going to go with the Suns. The Suns are going to win this series. The Suns are going to win in 5. I'm telling you, the Suns are going to win the series in 5. It's over.
It sounds good.
I got to stick with the Suns.
I'll add this. One of the things that I'll say is the difference with the series, maybe for the Bucks, it's been addition by subtraction, right? They subtracted out the fans in Phoenix, right? And now that's allowed them to actually get into their game. I think the big thing to keep in mind is what happens now when the environment changes, because that environment has not been helpful or successful for the Bucks. They've struggled, they've been staggered, and they have looked lost and not even in the game at sometimes. And I feel like that's going to be one of the things that I look at. Can they bring that same energy from Milwaukee back to Phoenix and show why they've made it to 3 Eastern Conference Finals, but just haven't been able to make it over that hill, right? Are they going to be able to show, is Chris Middleton going to be able to still contribute and score the same way that he has been? And then when you're talking about the Suns, is Devin Booker going to continue to do what he does and then also have the energy, especially if Chris Paul does not have that energy at the end of the game? Is Devin Booker going to have that energy to be able to lead his team and carry them to the championship if this game becomes tight? I think that those are some of the things that I'm very interested in seeing. I'm interested in seeing how they deal with the fourth quarter situation. Like you said, Chris Middleton in this previous game was the one that was carrying the ball a lot more often, doing a lot of the shots and eliminating that possibility that Giannis even had to worry about trying to make free throws late in the game to keep his team in it. So I think that that's some of the things that I'm very interested in seeing in this game. And I think that a lot of those things will help determine who's going to be the winner of this series. I still say that it's going to be the Bucks. I don't know if it's going to be 6 or 7. I said Bucks in 6, which is going to be kind of hard. But if they get this next game, Bucks in 6 is a very real possibility. And I think that everybody can say that with what they've seen from the Bucks in the past 2 games. However they are winning, and they have to take pride in that. And the Suns better be worried, because if not, you're shortchanging yourself and you're putting yourself in a situation where you're setting yourself up to lose. And I'm glad that this series is tied 2-2 now, because a lot of people didn't think it was going to be this way. And I think that this is a really good championship, a lot better than what we expected. So I'm happy with the product so far, and I'm excited to see the next 2 games at least.
Yeah. One thing that we do know, if the Bucks are going to win this series, they have to win at least 1 game on the road, right? That just has to happen because they don't have home court advantage. Phoenix doesn't. Phoenix can just win win at home and they'll win the series. So they're okay. The Bucks need a sense of urgency on the road, or else the next time they do play a road game will be Game 7, and you don't want to be in that situation on the road. Another thing that I think is interesting is looking at who scores what points. Devin Booker scored 40 points last night. Chris Middleton scored 40 points last night. Whose 40 points do you think were more important and most impactful?
I'll definitely say Chris Middleton's, because what Chris Middleton was able to do was he was able to actually slow down the offense for his team, let them get together, and then take them away from the situation where they had to play a quick, fast-paced game. And not only did he do that, he did it very efficiently. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't forced. And if you looked at his shots, they were nothing but net type shots, and for him to have that much control over his game and being able to score at any point in time effortlessly, I think that was a huge thing. Not only did it make it so that Giannis could really focus on the other stuff and that Jrue could really make sure that he had his aggressive defense on Chris Paul, right? He's definitely a bigger body than Chris Paul, and you have to think that takes a toll on Chris Paul as well when we're talking about fatigue and energy as well. So I'll say that I think that we know Booker can get the 40. He does it game in and game out. It's not a big thing, but when Chris Middleton puts up 40, you know that gives the Bucks an edge. So I'll have to give that edge to Chris Middleton with the 40-point performances.
And that's exactly what I was thinking. And so looking at that, Chris Middleton, if he can score 40 points, the Bucks should win that game because he's the X factor for the Bucks. Now looking at the Suns, you have your guy Devin Booker, who can put up points. Any amount of points he scores under 40 is fine. If he scored 50 points, then that probably means that they're going to win the game. But if he's scoring 40 and under, then that's just okay. That's just Devin Booker. But if Chris Paul can't put up a good scoring night, if DeAndre Ayton is in foul trouble and can't put up double digits, which I don't think he did score double digits this last game, then it's not going to work well for them. So those two guys, as part of their three best and most important players, need to contribute more. The Bucks got it from their guy that they needed. Now we'll see what the Suns can do. And I'm pretty sure, unless Chris Paul is hurt, like we're saying, they should play better on the road. Ayton should play better on the road, or at home. Sorry, they should play better at home. And Ayton should play better at home. So I think that's the thing. So we know who the X factors are now. Chris Middleton's much more of an X factor than Devin Booker is. Devin Booker is such a good scorer that his points kind of don't matter in a weird way, right? It's strange to say, unless he puts up 60. But if he gets 40, you can let him have that 40. That's fine. But his 40 is a lot different than DeAndre Ayton's 40 or Chris Paul's 40.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I'm excited for this series. When's the next game? Is it tomorrow evening?
Saturday.
Okay, cool. So,
yeah, so they're doing every 2 days now. They're taking 2 days off in between games now.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So Saturday, be on the lookout for those storylines that we highlighted because I think that this is going to be a very good series. Hopefully, the Bucks win at least one more. Hopefully, the Suns win at least one more as well. I think that will be a really good thing if this goes 7 or even if it goes 6. I'd still be fairly happy, but it'll be interesting to see what happens no matter what.
A game 7 would be brutal. It would be brutal.
If it goes,
90 to 85.
Quick question: if it goes game 7, who are you taking?
The Bucks. If the Bucks can force it to game 7, then I will take them as being the tougher, more physical team. And the game is going to be low scoring. It's going to be tired. It's going to be anxious, nervous. So I'll take the Bucks in that only because it's such a slowed down pace. I feel like they can out physical them. They can get enough contribution from their guys who are a little more grizzled, I guess, with the exception of Chris Paul, of course. But they have, I think, a little bit more veteran leadership that can pull out a tough game 7. And they already did it. Mm-hmm. They already had to play a game 7 on the road.
Yeah.
And it was a close nail biter, and they managed to pull it out. So they know how to do it.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I think that's a really good point to stop that conversation and head to our next point. I did want to say one thing first. For anyone listening, Jeremy's throwing a lot of jabs today. It's because he has a clear camera where I can finally see his face. I haven't seen this man in over 2 years, and now I finally actually get to see his face. So he's throwing all kinds of jabs, and that's okay because his other camera's from the 1990s, and he looks like a blob. So now we're good, and I'm trying to get him to continue to use his phone so that we can actually upload some video, some quality video of both of us guys so you can see us in action. I think that you guys will love how we interact with each other as well. So
I originally had been using a camcorder is the thing. So I've been trying to make home movies. Yeah, I've been making home movies.
That boy been using a camcorder.
So that's what I was using. So they all come out, all the video has to come on VHS first. And I have to somehow digitize it and send it to Paul. So that's the problem.
Yeah, that's pretty much 100% correct. So.
Yeah. I got the VCR. I got the VCR on deck, so don't worry. I'm using the VCR. We're good. I got the tapes. I'm double taping sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Gotta do what I gotta do.
It's silly, man. We just finished with the Bucks Suns. What is this game 5, right? So game 5. So let's talk about game 5. So first of all, what do you think of the results of game 5?
I'm really surprised. I told you every time the Bucks win a game, I'm really surprised. The Suns had what, a 16-point lead at some point, right? I think it was 16 points.
Might
I
have been a
sent
little
you a
bit more,
text.
yeah.
I said game over. I sent you a text. You were like, nope, not over. Just because you always be contrary like that. I was
No,
like, whatever, dude.
it was the first
Game is over.
quarter. You tripping?
I know. Sometimes games end in the first quarter, basically.
Yeah.
Because that lead could have went out to 25. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay.
But the Bucks came back. I was really surprised because I don't know how the shot stopped falling a little bit, and then the Bucks got more efficient on offense. And I mean, Drew Holiday was hitting everything he put up. Chris Middleton started hitting everything.
Mhm.
They just went crazy offensively, and then it basically became an even game. And the Bucks took off and got their own 16-point lead. And the ending was really good. Came down to the final couple of minutes. So yeah, it was a good game.
So did you learn anything from making early predictions based off of first quarter scores?
No, I'll always do that. I had a feeling for it, and it felt right. It felt like here's what I'll say though. We've seen it though. Like that the Suns have this ability to just run off a huge run and keep the lead. You've seen it throughout the playoffs. Like they've done that. They've done it to the Bucks.
Yeah.
So I had no reason to feel otherwise. What I think this game taught me was that the Bucks are tougher. I can't believe that, but I feel like the Bucks have shown themselves to be tougher because the game, in order for the Bucks to get back in, they had to just start making it a more of a physical game, and it worked. They got in Booker's face. They tried to slow it down. They tried to make sure that when the rebounds happened, they were swarming. They weren't necessarily out jumping or anything, but I just think they made it more of a physical game, and it worked. And there was a point where Booker was scoring all the points for the Suns, and I was like, that's not a good sign. Because when he gets tired, right? When he gets tired, what's going to happen?
Mhm.
And eventually, his shot stopped falling. He was taking a lot, but they just weren't going down, and the Bucks were still hit. So, what was your whole assessment of the game? I already gave my instant reaction.
I thought it was a really good, really well played game by the Bucks. I think that the Suns did a really good job initially coming out. They definitely used the energy from the fans, which is hands down. I think Phoenix fans have been the most exciting fans to watch this playoffs. Like, shout out to them, whether they win, whether they lose. Like, shout out to them. Shout out to my buddy Spencer. I know he's been at some of the games. I hope you enjoyed those. Sorry for this close loss, but one of the things that stood out to me is we talked about this, right? Like, this is what we talked about in our assessment of can the Bucks win a game this series, right? All the things that we highlighted, right? Pick and rolls with Giannis, whether it's Chris Middleton, whether it's Drew Holiday, right? Those matchups, getting the mismatches where now you have like these big guys going against some of these smaller guys, right? Taking the energy away, setting these picks. Awesome. Drew Holiday slowing down the game at certain points. And then also just utilizing his shot. So I think that a lot of the things that we talked about with respect to can the Bucks win a game, these are the things that we saw. Again, the same thing. Giannis has to be that second guy. He has to get his points in other ways. He has to contribute to the team in a lot of different ways outside of just being that leader, and this is what happened. So I think that it's amazing that we kind of foresaw some of this stuff as well, right? And I'm just surprised that it happened to that level, because there was a lot of points in this game where it was just like, which way is it going to go, right? What's going to happen? Are the Bucks going to fall apart right now? Especially those times, when Giannis missed, I think he missed like 2 free throws twice, maybe, right? Back to back. He missed 2 free throws, then he came back another time, missed 2, and it's like, ooh, that's a stretch, But as a team, they really looked good, and they really won this as a team, minus PJ Tucker. I don't know what that boy was doing. That boy was tripping, bro. But outside of that, I think that the Bucks played a really good game. So did the Suns. They just didn't have that extra oomph to get them to where they needed to be.
Yeah, I'm just so surprised that the Bucks were able to, while the game was a high-scoring game, the Bucks still played it on their terms more so than the Suns did. And just the shot making of the Bucks tonight, they just hit every big shot, right? Like,
yeah,
with the exception of maybe a couple Giannis free throws, they hit every big shot. And even at the end, I was thinking when Giannis missed that free throwing and they got the offensive rebound, my thinking was the best thing that can happen is he misses this and they get a rebound.
Yeah.
Because that's way better because it kills time and then somebody else can get the free throw. And Middleton hit 1 out of 2, but you still want him at the free throw line.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm just really surprised. And yes, the things that we wanted the Bucks to do, they did do a lot of pick and rolls. They did pick and rolls with Giannis and Chris Middleton handling the ball, Giannis setting the screen, which I thought was kind of weird because Middleton a couple of times just kind of lost the ball and they went and double teamed on those things and they put a lot of pressure on him.
Uh-huh.
But like you were saying, they involved those two in the pick and roll. They made sure that they got those guys involved in more of a set offense. But it's just big shot after big shot. I'm just like amazed at the game that Drew Holiday had because he wanted the big shots. He wanted there in the big moment. He wanted the ball and he delivered. So I can't say anything negative about the Bucks. I don't think they toughed it out. They made it a physical game. They made it kind of a down to the wire game, even though they blew that lead. It was still kind of the way they wanted the game to be played, and it worked out. They won the game.
Yeah, and I think that I want to say that the coaching definitely was huge. Because those first 2 games, and I can understand anybody that thought that going back to Phoenix, the Bucks had no shot. Right? If you looked at those first 2 games and you saw how Phoenix fed off the energy, how Chris Paul was in his zone, how Booker was in his zone, how the whole team just had ball movement, open shots. It was like a beautiful display of basketball, right? And everybody was like, well, what are the Bucks going to do, right? We even made a show about it, right? Because we needed to address that point. If they didn't change around the way that they were doing things, then there was no way that they were going to come back and win the series or even just compete in it, And I feel like that's one of the things. Whatever the Bucks have done, whether it is just coaching, whether it's players, whatever it is, they've really stepped their game up. And if they win this championship, I'll say they definitely earned it, right? Nobody can take this one away from them because they fought and they fought hard. You know what I mean? So I'm excited to see what happens in Game 6 because this was one of the most memorable games that I've seen. Going into a place where you lost 2 games in a row very badly. And also having that crowd that was just bothering them. One thing, I don't know why they kept showing that dude with the hundreds. I'm like, man, he ain't spending them. He emptied out his savings account to get on TV, and that was it. But that was just kind of funny though. So
yeah, couple of things. Number one, our guy Crazy Eyes got more time, right? He's out there. He is a totally energy guy, but he can do so many things offensively and defensively, right?
Yeah.
Like he hits the threes,
those corner threes. Yeah.
Plays really tough defense. He rebounds, just all energy off the bench. And that's what we wanted to see. We wanted to see him get more playing time, and he's been playing really well. That's Bobby Portis, of course. Another thing, we saw LeBron making another playoff appearance tonight, another NBA Finals appearance. So I think that would be his 11th.
That was funny.
His 11th NBA Finals appearance tonight. So we saw LeBron out there. Coming off of that Space Jam, a new legacy premiere, which I'll have to watch so we can talk about that.
Yeah, definitely watch it.
And another thing, since we're going here, all right, you are now predicting the Bucks to win Game 6, right?
I did, but I definitely need to think about it. I definitely need to consider it. It sounds like the Bucks should win, you know what I mean? But when you have close games like this, it takes it to a different level, right? Because now the Suns are entering a realm where they weren't familiar with, right? To say that you're at 2-all at home, you're very dominant in those games, and now you have them coming back to your home. I don't think anybody in the Suns organization thought that they were going to lose this game. I think none of them thought they were going to lose, especially like you said, after that first quarter, after they were just kind of dominating. No one thought about that. And now, since they did lose it and they did have so many issues, maybe this gives them that extra edge to kind of really focus so that they can do a little bit better the next game. So it seems like the Bucks will win, but you just never really know with this type of series because adjustments can be made at any time.
All right, well, let's assume the Bucks win. Do you still fire Budenholzer?
Why?
Because just because the guy wins doesn't mean he's the guy for the team. Doesn't mean he's the right guy for the job. If you were going to fire him,
I do not even consider firing him after the adjustments that he's made after game 1 and 2. How would you even consider that? You know, like saying you have to tell your superstar, we're not going to be able to run the game through you. We're going to have to use other guys, and you're going to have to contribute, and have him buy into that. And then also to motivate guys like Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton, to come up and like establish themselves as the scorers, as the leaders, as the ones that are going to be the primary focus of the offense. That's a huge call to make, and not every coach can make that. And now, not only that, if they do win, now he has the trust of his players, he has the trust of the organization, and that just means that they can buy into what he's selling a little bit more, you know? And if they can bring back the same core of guys, they're good. You know, one of the things that people forget, they forget how good Jrue Holiday can be in moments, right? Jrue Holiday has always been fairly solid. He's just maybe a little bit more timid, you know what I mean? But whoever told him, Jrue, you just need to drive, get that mid-range, Ayton's gonna crash down on you, just shoot your little running jumper and you're good. Every time Ayton tried to come over, Jrue was like, all right, cool, you jump, you go down, I shoot, bam, that's points. You know, to see that and to understand that that's a limitation, that's beautiful. To understand that you have to make 2 picks, right? First, to get Brook Lopez on Devin Booker so that there isn't an extra guy there to kind of like give Giannis trouble when he's coming through the lane. Like another thing, right? Like there's so many little small things that Bud did that, you know, he's a good coach, you know, and one of the things that Jeremy talked about was maybe he overcoached the team. Like maybe they weren't as good as what they were. Maybe so. But whatever he's done in this playoffs from game 2 to now, it's worked, and he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, you know, I know that's why I also made the point that he was overachieving as the coach of the team. But I also know that when the rumors are out that a coach is going to be let go, there's something of a kind of a severance of the relationship that's already started, right? That maybe the trust is gone, maybe the faith is gone. You remember how in Portland they were like, well, we'll fire Terry Stotts unless there's a playoff miracle, right? And so I feel like it's the same situation here with the Bucks. This is a playoff miracle right now. And probably, you know, whether they win or lose, being 1 game away from the championship is a playoff miracle for them. So I know winning a championship means something, but would you be convinced that they could duplicate this success? Or would you just say, we won our championship, we're good? We're like the Raptors. Like I said, the Raptors won their 1 championship, they're set. It doesn't matter at that point going forward who the coach is, to be honest, to me. Because if you feel like the relationship is gone, if you feel like we got our championship, but we kind of really don't rock with this guy, what's the difference?
I don't think that they don't rock with him. I think that it's hard to rock with someone when you keep hitting the same wall, right? When you keep going with the same person and you don't get any further. You're like, something needs to change. It's either me or it's that person, right? And now they've got to that wall and they've gotten over it, right? Now they have that trust built, right? Because now that wall, they have a plan. They have a plan when they get to that wall again, and that's all that really matters, you know? So I feel like with this Bucks team, not sure what who their free agents are, and I'm not sure what all other storylines might come up. But if they do win, you have to imagine that there's going to be guys that want to come to the Bucks, right, on cheap contracts just to try to chase that championship again, because they know that they're a championship quality team. This year, we have to say that there was a lot of injuries, right? There was a lot of injuries to a lot of teams in the playoffs, and that definitely played a role in the matchups and the pairings and who made it to the next round. Could the Bucks have did that without injuries? I don't know, you know? But I think the thing is if they don't have the injuries, what other pieces are they going to need? Because you have to believe the Lakers, they're going to come back hard, you know? There's a lot of young teams as well. Yeah, the Nets, right? There's a lot of young teams. I talked about Memphis, you know, like that's going to be another one of those teams. And we're just talking about just some of the big teams, but there are so many other potential guys that can come up. So I say that if you have a chance to win multiple championships, you have to continue to work with that group and let them get a second shot, you know? So that's my take on it.
My point being, I don't know if they have a chance to win multiple championships because of the circumstances that they're in right now to get to the championship. Had the Nets been completely healthy, maybe they wouldn't have won that series, right? Had Philadelphia, I don't know, been completely healthy, maybe they go up against them instead of Atlanta.
Mhm.
Who knows what happens in a different world? So, not taking away anything from them because they've won the games that they're supposed to win. But if the same thing happens next year, you get the same matchups. Do they win all those matchups to get to the finals? And if are they playing a more experienced team in the finals if they get there next year? So all those things coming into play, this might just be a one off, and a championship is a championship. But do you go and say, if I'm owning the team, honestly, I say we got that one. I'm a coast. I'm good. I don't need to win another one. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to have the people think that I'm not trying anymore. But if I don't win, if I don't have that same success, I'm not going to be upset. I'm probably going to have a hangover for the next 2 years because of all the partying, like Alex Ovechkin, basically, after they won that Stanley Cup. So I feel like it's just house money from here on. It doesn't matter that much. So maybe not fire your coach if you don't want to. I'm just saying that nothing else in the next 2 years to me would matter because we got the championship. Whatever the circumstances are next year, the year after that, I'm not going to put pressure on the team. I'm not going to make major changes. I'm not going to, hold anything against the guys for not achieving this level of success in the future, knowing that they were the 3 seed this year and they might very well be the same position next year.
Yeah, I think you don't hold anything against them, right? But there's no point to bring in a new coach and have to rebuild, right? Like you're changing around a whole philosophy that has got you to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 years in a row, and then maybe won the championship the next year. Like, where do you really need to go? As far as being a small market team like Milwaukee, you just keep this run going as long as you can. You're talking about, are they overachieving? Well, let's continue to overachieve, because now if you get rid of Bud, now you have to find a coach that can make them double overachieve, right? And that makes no sense, right? It makes no sense. So what I say is that you bring back this group. You know who you have. You know what the other teams are building. You know what the matchups are going to be like, and you just run with that, and you do the best you can. One thing that's interesting. Sorry, another side note. One thing that's interesting. I was looking at the 2015 draft because I was in a discussion where people were talking about Miles Turner, and they were talking about Devin Booker and drafting them over whoever. I forgot that Bobby Portis came out that same year as Devin Booker, right? Like, he's still fairly young. I think Bobby Portis is only 26 years old. Sometimes he looks like he's like 32 or something crazy eyes, right? But he's still young. Brook Lopez, I don't know what's going to happen with him. He's still getting up there, but his little three, if he can come off the bench and still contribute that way, good. Get rid of PJ Tucker. Like I said, PJ Tucker was like the best thing that happened to the Suns tonight. There was like a
PJ
turnover.
Tucker has been playing his butt off on defense. You know that.
It doesn't matter if he was playing his butt off on defense. He couldn't keep up with Devin Booker. He couldn't keep up with Chris Paul. He was late. He was trying to take charges that were not going to be called. He had key turnovers late in the game that allowed the Suns to come back, and he's getting up there, so maybe he doesn't need to have as much playing time, but this is what you do. You understand why you were in the championship. You understand what helped you out, and you understand what type of pieces you're going to have to play at that championship level in the future years. So I don't know. I say you keep Bud. That's my interpretation. I'll ask you, what about Monty Williams, right? Like, what if Monty Williams doesn't win this championship, right? What do you say for the Suns? And what do you say about Monty Williams and what he's done for the Suns so far?
Running back. That's pretty much it. There's no reason to change. He's in his second year. The team is young. They've gotten this far. His situation is so much different than Coach Bud's because no one expected this from the team. They got the number 2 seed. They were, they were young. They were good at the end of last year, but they really took off this year. They basically have a new team. When you bring Chris Paul over, you get some free agents. So this wasn't expected. So next year you go into the season with actual expectations and the blueprint as to how to get back. and then you just try it again. I don't think you take anything away in terms of like his job security or evaluation of him. He's done really well with the team. He's helping motivate the team. You got to lose, right? Most people aren't Steve Kerr that can just take over and just win basically immediately. So no, I think Monty Williams is fine. I think you just run it back and see what happens. And again, it's not over yet, so we'll see. And I don't think it matters even if they lose 4 in a row here. It'll be something that hurts, but you got to go through some pain in order to understand how to win.
Yeah, so maybe you got to go through pain 3 times in a row in the Eastern Conference Finals. So who knows? Who knows what you have to do?
Maybe you got to also be the number 1 seed and get swept by the Cavs one year too.
Hey, maybe you do. You know.
What you got to do.
So what I'll say is that I think Monty Williams has done an awesome job. Whether it was the transition, the changes that they made in the bubble last year till now, even their record throughout the season was very strong, and then the playoff performance was fantastic. You know, whether they lose, whether they win, Monty Williams did an awesome job, and I think that's really amazing. One other thing that I want to say is we're kind of jumping the gun a little bit because we're talking about the what ifs with the championship. So I'll ask you this: for Game 6, how do you see it playing out? Do you think the Suns have any chance? And if they do, what do they need to do to win that game, or at least to compete so that they have a chance at the end of the game to win it?
I want to see the Suns get back to their pick and roll game. I want to see them throwing alley-oops to DeAndre Ayton. I want to see Ayton just be better because he can be so efficient around the basket. He can hit free throws. He can do so much offensively. And he intimidates people defensively. I've seen a lot of altered shots when he's in the lane and people get what looks like a free layup and they just miss it because they're worried about getting blocked.
Yeah.
He can have such a large influence on the game. I'm just not seeing it these last few games. And I think it's really impacted how the Suns have been playing. So I need to see DeAndre Ayton be better. I need to see them focus on getting him offense and not just having Devin Booker be the only person trying to score. Because he'll get tired and the points slow down, and that's what happened this game. So get DeAndre Ayton more involved. Even if Chris Paul's not going to be a huge factor on offense, scoring points-wise, at least make sure that he's distributing the ball, make sure he has the ball in his hands, is a source of offense. Get those other guys off the ball, and hopefully that'll open up the offense like it did before and have them moving the ball, getting open shots, and just running up the score like they've been doing. So I think they need to get back to being more efficient with their offense. I think the Bucks just keep doing what they do and keep being physical, keep bringing the energy, and their shots are falling now. So if they have another game where their shots are falling like they did tonight, they'll win the game and they'll win the championship.
Yeah, I'll say 2 things. I think that's a critical point, right? The Bucks are actually getting very good quality shots. You know, whether it's the pick and roll and just be sneaky just to have a little bit of space to shoot your shot for Chris Middleton, whether it's Jrue Holiday just making sure that he gets those matchups or doing his like running jumper, whatever it is, the Bucks are getting shots. And when you're talking about DeAndre Ayton, I feel like what the Bucks tried to do, they tried to frustrate him, right? Like they tried to make him just a little bit too short for blocks, right? Like add a position on different types of shots, you know? And I think that has a big role in the overall game. DeAndre Ayton's what, 22, maybe 23 right now?
Maybe, yeah.
Young, still a young player that's learning the game, still learning how to use his skills at the next level. And this is one of those things that you're talking about, right? When you're considering Monty Williams and this young team with Cameron Payne, Devin Booker, right? I don't know if Cam Johnson I don't know what his contract is like, but he may or may not be there. You know what I mean? But you still have a lot of very young guys that are out there that are doing really good. And, you know, what else happened to the Suns, right? They lost Sarge, right? They lost Sarge early in the game, or early in the series, right? So again, injuries played their role, and who knows, an extra guy that can play a little bit of defense, can make some shots, that's out of your rotation. Injuries still playing their role in these games. You know, we can't take them out. But like I said, I think that the next game is going to be very interesting, and I'm excited to see who wins that one because it could go a lot of ways, you know. I think it's going to be a lot tighter than we anticipate. I feel like, if anything, in the fourth quarter, maybe we'll see like a little spurt by the Bucks at the end to go up by 12 to win the game. But I don't think that it'll be anything crazy. If not, I say the Suns, either Bucks by 12 in a late run, or Suns by like 6 in some type of like late shooting type of situation. Even this game, they had a chance, right? They had a chance. Devin Booker came down, hit that three, splat cat in his face. You know what I mean? And then everybody was like, well, what's going to happen? Giannis missing the free throws, this whole thing. But again, in critical moments, the Bucks just came up bigger. And that's what it really came down to. The Bucks came up bigger in critical moments, you know? So I don't know. I'm excited to see what the game's going to be. I'm not sure who's going to win that next one. And even if they win that next one, I'm not sure what ends up happening. But it's going to be a good game, and I'm excited for whatever happens. This finals has turned out to be a lot better than what I anticipated, especially after the first two games. So I think everybody has to be enjoying it, maybe besides the Suns fans with this recent one. But everybody else has to enjoy the quality of basketball that's been played in this NBA Finals.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your Martin Lawrence NBA analysis. She was like, black cow, black cat, black. I have Martin Lawrence on you. All right.
I don't even know, man. I don't even know.
Yeah, I think that I'll go with the Bucks in the next game though, because I think they're right there. I think they're hungry. I think they want it. So it's going to be a tense game, right? These closeout games in the finals, some have been bad. I think that game 7 between the Lakers and the Celtics that the Lakers won was kind of a really bad. I remember that game. I was like, this is not a good game. Like both the teams seemed tired and or nervous. Those games are really tough. So I think that the Bucks will be tentative. I think it'll be a slow kind of a knockout, knockdown, drag out kind of thing. And I think that's what it's going to have to be. And if there's a game 7, the game 7 will be exactly the same. Be kind of tense, kind of anxious, like game 4 was. So I think that'll be the case. But I'm going to go with the Bucks. And if the Bucks win, I'm still going with the Suns in 9.
Jeremy was so defiant. He was like, no way. This is over. It's over. It's done, you know? But that's pretty cool. You know, like, I like that you're consistent with your initial thought. Even if it leads you astray, you're like, I want to be astray. So that's fine. I do want to ask you one question, because this is a point that we talked about in our last like little quick show, and we kind of highlighted it. So Devin Booker, I'm not sure what he scored tonight, but it had to be like close to 40. It's like either like 41 or 38 or something around there, right? We talked about what a 40-point performance meant from Devin Booker. So with that said, are you surprised what happened in terms of Devin Booker scoring and what that meant to the overall game?
No, I think the Bucks are okay with him scoring 42. I think they're totally okay with him getting off like that, because they're going to try to play him tough, but they'd rather take Chris Paul out of the game, and they'd rather take some of the shooters out of the game. They said tonight that Jay Crowder and Pat Connaughton are the 2 leading 3-point shooters in the finals, which is really surprising, right? And Jay Crowder started off really, really well, and they had a big lead when he was hitting shots, and then he stopped hitting shots. And I think a lot of the guys, Bridges wasn't really hitting shots. So those guys, and Ayton especially, I think needs to be impactful. When those guys aren't playing well, then it's a lot different of a team. So I think the Bucks are okay with Booker being able to score a bunch of points, because eventually he gets tired. And that's what happened. He was scoring a bunch of points, then he stopped making shots, and then the lead kind of went up. So I'm not surprised, and that's just kind of the pattern we noticed. So it makes sense to me. And I'm not really surprised. So what are your thoughts on that?
Not too surprised. I feel like they didn't mind Devin Booker trying to get his shots, because at certain times, I feel like they had a plan for him. There was only a certain amount of shots that Devin Booker got that were really just like, wow, you know what I mean? And he has that ability. But I think that him scoring 40 and everybody else not being involved, if I'm the Bucks, I'm fine with that, you know? And I think that one more thing about the Bucks is that with the way that they played, they did get very physical at times. And it's interesting to see that they did get very physical. And I thought that this was actually a very physical game. With the refs, I didn't really notice as many foul calls as I thought I would get. Somebody said that there was a lot of foul calls, but I felt like there wasn't enough. I felt like there was a lot of offensive fouls that just weren't called. Like, offensive fouls do not exist in the finals. Devin Booker, every time he's pushing off, shouldering,
He creates a lot of space. Yeah.
And his arm is out there, and
Mhm.
they never call it. And I'm like, wow, like they're just not going to call nothing. You know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of interesting. I wonder if he's going to get those same calls if they're in Milwaukee. Not sure if that happens or not, but I do think that's something to look out for. The last question that I have for you: if the Bucks do win, who are you naming the MVP at this point so far?
Giannis. I think you have to kind of vote for Giannis as the MVP because he is the most important player on the team and he has put up really good numbers.
Yeah.
I think, like we said, Middleton is the X factor. And when he plays well, the team plays well.
Yeah.
But he's not consistently been the better player. So by default, you have to give it to Giannis. That's just it's kind of no other option for that. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought Giannis at first too. If you think about the games that they won, though, I think Middleton may have been a more critical factor because with Giannis leading, they didn't have enough to win those games, right? Like they needed somebody else to come out and to take charge. And I think that that's why I would consider Chris Middleton. So I think that this next game really is going to be the one that decides if they win, right? Who is the MVP? Is it going to be Giannis or is it going to be Middleton? Giannis came up big a lot of times. Even him being at home and hitting those free throws was huge. Even on the road, he was very focused. Again, he was around 50% from free throw, but he didn't force a bunch of shots. He didn't try to get to the lane all the time. Chris Middleton had to step up and handle the ball because of this situation as well. And maybe again, that's why I give the edge maybe to Chris Middleton a little bit. But I think this next game will really show the most with respect to who's going to get the MVP. So
yeah, and that's my point that Chris Middleton being the X factor, he needs to play well for them to win, but he hasn't always played well. And if you look at just the entirety of the series, Giannis has been way more consistent. It's like when LeBron wins a championship, right? When his team wins a championship, you have to give him the MVP because he's always there, right? And I thought last year that Anthony Davis was going to need to win the MVP because I thought he was going to need to play well.
I remember that.
And still didn't work. LeBron still got it because if LeBron wins, he's going to be the one that gets the MVP. And I think
sure.
This is kind of how it has to be with Giannis. He is the guy on his team. And if he does win, you have to ask, too. Now we have to compare his career with Steph's career because they're both two-time MVPs. And then he would have a finals MVP whereas Steph wouldn't. So I know you wouldn't take his career over Steph's, right? But would you take his career over Steph's? Had to ask the question.
No, definitely not. And you know, like Giannis is still fairly young, you know, like we think about him because we think about him and a lot of players as older because they're veteran players in this league, you know, but a lot of these guys, they just came in the league very young, you know, like they came in at 18 years old, 17, 19 years old, and now they're in their mid 20s. And we're like, it seems like they've been there forever, right? But they're still very young. And that's something that's interesting and to keep in mind. So, you know, Steph is a really good player. I know we talked a little bit about the Steph evolution and was he declining as a player, which he showed us he's not. So I think that Giannis still has a lot to do to get to Steph's legacy, but what Giannis has been able to do from where he's came from, his growth has been huge. I don't know if I can necessarily compare his to Steph's and say one is bigger than another because they grew in different ways. But what Giannis has done from the limitations that he had coming into the league, you know, like he's really elevated his game and nobody can ever take that away from him. I don't know if there's ever going to be a player that comes in so raw the same way that he was to develop to what he's became in the NBA and creating his own style. So shout out to Giannis for putting in the work, and he's not done growing. He's not done growing physically as a basketball player. So be aware, NBA, because he's still coming at you. So
yeah, I know what you're saying because Giannis really has become so good of a player in a way that you wouldn't have expected. I think Joel Embiid, we also talked about, has had similar kind of growth as a player that you would not have expected him to be this player that he is when he just came out of college. So those two guys come to mind right now. I know there's other people.
Even if you're talking about like Giannis, right? Like this athletically long guy. He wasn't even that big when he came into the league, you know. And I say for Embiid, right? Embiid and Giannis, when you're comparing those two, and I'll kind of close it out with this. Embiid and Giannis, when you're kind of comparing those two, right? Embiid was at Kansas, and he was long. He had like a little bit of a shot. He could rebound, he could block, but he always had injury issues as well. And you really didn't get to see the expanse of his game. Once he got to the NBA, he really developed his low post game. He developed his shot even more. He developed his ball handling, which is really amazing. He didn't necessarily have that athletic type of thing that Giannis had. So maybe say somebody like a Gerald Green, right? Gerald Green came in. He was a very athletic person who had a lot of potential. His shot was inconsistent. He could dunk, he could drive, but his decision making, his basketball, he was never really that guy that advanced his skills the same way that Giannis did, right? So like when I'm thinking about Giannis, I'm thinking about these athletic type of guys that ended up either dominating with their athleticism or taking it to another level and developing their game. Like right now, Giannis has his back to the basket game. He'll get inside, he'll go back, he'll like bump in, turn around, get enough space, and just bunny buckets, you know? Like he's doing a really good job with what he has. Even his little mid-range fadeaway, like it works for him, you know, and it's going to keep getting better as he gets older, as he does it a little bit more, you know? So I'm excited to see where Giannis goes. Like I wanted him in the draft, but I didn't know he was going to be this good. I didn't know he was going to be this good. I definitely say that I had no clue about that. So shout out to him and what he's done with the Bucks. And hopefully they get a championship, whether it's this year, whether it's in the future. I think he definitely deserves one. That's what I would say. I wish Chris Paul could get one too, but I don't know if he'll ever get one.
If not this year, it's going to be tough. And you know, I think I'm the expert on windows closing. So I called the Clippers windows closed after last year. I think this is the Bucks' chance. This is it right here. So this is both their teams' chance right here. This is it. Because I think
Jeremy is the man of limitations. He will tell you that you will never go further in life.
That's right. I can't tell you that you will do better. Can't give you anything positive. But when it's about to mess up and the wheels gonna fall off, I can tell you that.
You gotta do what you gotta do. So
I'm gonna say that the Suns their window probably isn't closed because the West next year, I'm not buying. Like the Lakers want to be better, but you know LeBron's another year older. Anthony Davis is another year older, another year more injured. It's hard to say what that Lakers team is going to turn into. So the Suns,
but you still got Denver, you still got Utah. You know, you got Jamal Murray coming back. You know, like there's so many different things that are coming that are gonna take place. You know, even with the Jazz, right? Like we talked about how their team was and how solid they were going to be. You know, and injuries to Mike Conley kind of affected that as well. So the West is still like very competitive with a lot of teams. So I don't know what happens in the West. Like we said, injuries played a huge role in this NBA playoffs, and I feel like that can't be overshadowed. I'm not sure how it's going to be next year. The guys who tore ACLs are still going to be rehabbing. So who knows when Murray will get back? Who knows when Kawhi will get back? Yeah. You got Michael Porter Jr. Like another year of development. Like there is so many storylines, right? Like even when we talk about Memphis, right? Jaren Jackson Jr. didn't even play the whole season and tried to come back and establish his game. So there's a lot of storylines. What's Ja Morant's mustache going to be like? It's just hard to say. Man, it's hard to say what's going to happen next year. Ja will be Ja, and Ja we trust. I hope he gets a championship because Ja is next level, man. He is not even scratched the surface of how good he's going to be. And I feel like Ja is one of those guys that's going to take bits and pieces out of people's games, put it into his, and people are going to be like, how he do that? Yeah. Well, outside of that, do you have any other thoughts that you want to add in here before we get out of here? Vote for us again. We're in the Elite 8 for the theme song contest. So, you know, it's sweet to be elite. How sweet it is to be elite. You know, who knew that we could get this far? So we're one of the top 8 theme songs of a podcast that happened to know about the Pod Jerky contest.
the very specific group of podcasts that we are now one of the last, 8 best in. So I'm really excited about that. So vote for us in that. But still, vote for us, and hopefully we make the Final Four. We'll see. But Paul wants us to dominate.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, you don't enter a competition to say, yeah, let's make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and bail out. So we want to continue to put a strong effort forward, and I think that's really the main thing, right? Put a strong effort forward and try to win if we can. Thank you guys for voting so far. We'd appreciate to win first place. If we don't, we understand, but we want to really put a good effort forward. Another thing on the storyline of Beyond Sports with Paul and Jeremy. So we thank all of you guys who have been on the ride with us so far, and all the ones that will continue to add to the ride of us going further from here. If you're ever interested in adding any topics coming up and talking about anything with the show, we definitely love to have some of you guys contribute, give some points on what you think about. So, but again, I thank you guys for viewing. I thank you guys for your support, and we wouldn't be here without you guys. So
yeah, and we are strongly considering a rebrand. So that's a little inside baseball. So I wanted to delay all that stuff until we did these little events. Somehow, by chance, it has been delayed anyway. So we'll see, and we'll see where it goes. But we are considering that. So who knows what the future holds? We're just trying to have some fun and do good stuff. So
we'll close out on that. And I want to thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys are enjoying the NBA playoffs. Congratulations to the Bucks. They did not fold. They did not buckle. I'm happy for them. This is Beyond Sports with Paul and Jeremy. I am Paul, and
I'm Jeremy.
All right. And thank you guys for listening. Take care and have an awesome weekend.